Okay, so how much wrathy anger am I allowed to do? Because I know there's some verse somewhere that says be slow to anger. Which is wrath.
Okay.
So does that mean that if I'm like, hey, I want to kill this person,
right,
but I wait a few months and kill them then, is that me?
It's all better at that point.
Slow.
You've slowed to kill them.
Yes. So how much anger is acceptable, and when can I kill someone?
Okay, maybe really quick to say you don't need to be killing anyone. All right. I mean, maybe self-defense in some circumstances.
Well, you've equated wrath with murder,
right? Yeah.
So
let's say murdering someone.
When am I allowed?
Because if I'm in self-defense, it's not murder. So yeah, okay.
Right.
No to murder.
Okay.
No, we're not murdering.
Never.
What
if I'm slow to it? What if I do it slowly?
No murder.
Okay.
Murder's no murder.
All right.
Thou shalt not murder.
Right.
All right. So let's just put that on the table. Murder is no bueno.
Thou shalt not murder quick.
At all. All right.
All right. Fine.
Okay. So let's look at this maybe in stages.
Okay.
All right. So there's like the initial emotion of anger that we'll experience. Okay.
Which is not wrath.
Which is
yet.
Right.
Okay.
And which is not even sin yet.
Okay.
I'm going to call it completely amoral. Like, so in other words, like I experience this feeling of anger.
Okay.
All right. And because all of us have that feeling of anger from time to time.
Yeah.
Okay. And
so how long's that allowed to go on?
That is right. Yeah, I know you want your time. Okay. So I think that anger or wrath wrath becomes sin when we're hanging on to those emotions and dwelling on those emotions, like when we're just stewing in them. Okay. And we've all done that, right? We've all been
stewed.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if that's a Southernism or not, but yeah, that's I mean, like we've all been that place of where we're just dwelling on it and just can't, like it's almost like consuming our thoughts, consuming our emotions. We're just, and so I think this is the anger that Jesus speaks of when he's talking about, hey, you've heard it say, do not commit murder. I'm telling you, if you have anger in your heart to your brother and sister, you've already done that.
So is emotional, amoral anger not anger in my heart?
I think it's just there's the emotional, like the feeling of it.
Okay.
Okay. Now, you do hit on a good point, because one of the things you talked about was being slow to anger.
Right.
Right. So Exodus 34:6 talks about the fact that we're told that God is slow to anger, that he's abounding in steadfast love. Okay.
Okay.
And so if that's who God is, if he's slow to anger, if he's abounding in steadfast love, then hopefully as we're becoming more and more like him, we take on those tendencies.
Okay.
Like, so I know my temper used to be a lot, it was a lot shorter than it is now.
Right. Which is why we're able to do this podcast.
Because I don't want to kill you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, and I think, and some people just really never deal with anger that much. It's never been like a big deal to them. And then others, man, it's a much bigger deal.
Right.
And so, I mean, when I was like a young kid, I would like throw golf clubs around the golf course and everything.
On a golf course.
Yes, on a golf course.
Okay.
And so, or if I'm playing baseball and I get mad and slam the bat and all that stuff, right? It just it's like and then other things would happen and you just get a short and short temper. I probably things that we can relate to being in traffic. You know, and here around the Atlanta area, traffic being fairly dense at times,
at all times.
Right, at all times. And just the fact that, we can kind of, if someone cuts us off, we're not getting there as fast as we want to, someone's going insanely slow in front of us, whatever. We can lose our cool on that. Or something happens, maybe we're raising kids and, we just kind of go, we get more frustrated with our kids. But again, hopefully as we're becoming more like Christ, those things we're not being triggered with anger so much. But in that initial, what I'm saying is though, in that initial moment of anger, like that's amoral as long as we're not staying there in it.
How long is a moment?
All right. So Ephesians 4.
Mm-hmm.
So let me pull up Ephesians 4:26, and it'll probably be familiar. This is a pretty actually common phrase in our culture. Even if you're not really growing up in the church, you probably have heard this before. So verse 26 of Ephesians 4 says, "Be angry and do not sin. Don't let the sun go down on your anger," which is what we've heard often before, "and don't give the devil an opportunity." Okay, so it actually says, "Be angry and do not sin."
Okay.
And I think that's what we're talking about here, like that initial emotion of anger. Okay, you experience that. You feel that. Sometimes it's justified and sometimes it's not. So sometimes I can be so full of anger toward what I see as an injustice. Like, okay,
right.
Like, all right, extreme example, human trafficking, sex trafficking, right? Like, just the very topic itself can cause me to become angry. That
so
that
do you
exists.
Want to murder sex traffickers?
I see. That's where I can't go to. I can't go to. I want to murder.
Why not?
Them. I'm not supposed to murder, bro. But do I have that initial anger at the fact that exists and at the people that perpetuate it? Yes.
So you have constant initial anger for sex traffic. Just like you have constant anger for regular traffic.
I would say that the very fact that we get angry at something so immoral and unjust as human and sex trafficking is perfectly normal. Okay. The fact that we get angry at real traffic in Atlanta, Georgia, it may be normal, but it shouldn't be. Okay, it should be something that's consuming us, where we're yelling and screaming at the person in front of us. And so, but I think Paul's saying here when he's writing this to the church at Ephesus: be angry, do not sin, don't let the sun go down on your anger, and don't give the devil an opportunity. What he's saying here is, okay, you've got anger, you've got the initial anger, but don't let it, I'm not saying, I don't believe Paul's saying it's got to be specific to, well, you got to work it all out in your heart before the sun goes down. Because if you don't, then you're in sin at that point. It's not to be taken literally in that sense. It just means, hey, you can't allow this thing to continue on. Mm-hmm. Like, you can't allow just anger to continue to sit there and to dwell in it and think upon it, because then it becomes this anger, or this wrath becomes this all-consuming thing that's just that's not at all connected to the heart of God. Because unlike God, you and I are not going to be able very well to be loving in the midst of our anger. And rarely is our anger actually righteous.
Is anger for sex traffic righteous?
I mean,
against it?
I think it's righteous. Like, in the sense of, like, no, I like to have anger toward the fact that exists. Mm-hmm. Perfectly normal. Okay. But I think but to be clear, the next part of, hey, and I want to go kill all the people, or I wish all the people that did those things would just die. Okay, now that's something that's deeper in my heart that doesn't need to be there. Okay. Now I want justice, right? Mm-hmm. I don't want these individuals to still be around. I want them to be caught. I want them, right? Like, hey, you know, and like in my mind, I'm like, hey, cut their penises off, right? Like that's kind of like that's where I'm at.
All right.
Yeah. So
cool.
Yeah. I mean, like,
let's do it.
Let's do it. So, and honestly, I don't think that's even too much to ask. It's kind of like, hey, you broke a social contract with society by doing this. This is your punishment.
I don't want any law in the books that cuts your penis off.
No,
because people will use that against people, and that no,
and that's fair. And that's fair. I'm just saying that's how I feel about it, right?
Okay.
And I do think to have anger over an issue is okay, but yeah, what I'm getting to is, but to have anger to the point of like wanting to murder, kill the individuals behind all of it, that's where it's starting. That's at that point I've crossed a line.
Okay, so I can be angry at something forever, but just not want to murder people.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, because I want justice, right?
Does that apply to everything and everyone? Am I allowed to be angry at regular traffic forever?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. That's just you're angry at regular traffic just because you don't like it, because it's an inconvenience, because
right.
It's annoying.
So what?
That's a pretty different level.
Okay, so what things am I allowed to be angry at forever then?
I guess are those things violating the will of God?
Okay.
That you're mad at.
So regular traffic is not violating the will of God. It's just a thing.
It's just a thing that's happening because we live in a really busy city.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if God was mad at it forever, I'm allowed to be mad at it forever.
I think that's a good way of phrasing it. But
okay.
Again, the challenge, though, for all of us
is to not want to murder people.
Is to have love simultaneously.
Okay.
Because that's God's, like, God.
Okay.
God is still loving.
So I can be mad at sex traffickers, but I have to love them.
Yeah. And that sounds crazy.
Ugh.
Yeah. The whole love your enemy thing becomes very real at that point.
Oh, is that a Bible verse?
It is a Bible verse.
Oh, okay.
You know, you were kind of hoping that really wasn't there.
No, yeah. That's one of those phrases that I didn't know if it was like an actual Bible verse or if it's just something people said forever.
Oh, I gotcha.
Yeah. That happens a lot for some reason.
Yeah. So how about do we want to go find that verse then?
Sure.
Just to give context to people. All right. So I'm going back to Matthew 5 and verse 43.
Mm-hmm.
You have heard it said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. Heard it say.
Okay. Oh, so I've heard it said. That's not what they say to do.
That's what Jesus is saying.
Okay.
Jesus is saying to the people who's listening to him, he said, you've heard it said, love your neighbor, hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be children of your Father in heaven. And so, you know, as he goes on to say, for if you love those who love you, what reward will you have? Don't even the tax collectors do the same? And if you greet only your brothers and sisters, what are you doing out of the ordinary? Don't even the Gentiles do the same? And so, yeah, love your enemies. It's right there from Jesus' mouth.
Fine. I mean, fine.
Yes.